Hey everybody, Meinke here from MLife.com, joined by Nate Atkins. We're in Arlington, Texas, where the Lions have just lost a second straight game. Nate, it was not pretty, especially in the second half of this 42-21 loss.
Yeah, this was a game that it's amazing to see the shift between one half to the second. It just felt like a game that, with so much more to play for the Lions, I felt like if they could get this toward the end of the game, that would kind of work in their favor, just how much it mattered. But you just saw the talent kind of overwhelm them, especially some of the mismatches. I think we both kind of, as we picked the Lions to win, I think we both kind of underrated that mismatch against Des Bryant and some of those receivers in the passing game. And to me, that kind of made the difference, the way Dak Prescott just kind of picked them apart.
Yeah, I think we underestimated that. Darius Slay was so good, I thought, defending Des Bryant 2 years ago in the playoffs. 0 receptions allowed when he was in coverage against Des Bryant in that game. But they didn't have a good matchup for Des Bryant in this one. I mean, Nevin Lawson was the #1 corner, but he's 5'9". He's given up like 4 or 5 inches to Des Bryant. He's just a bigger wideout. We saw him catch 1 touchdown against Lawson. Did the same thing against Johnson Batamosi in the corner of the end zone. Batamosi actually had really good coverage on the play. So good, it was actually pass interference. It could have gone both ways, I thought. But that's where you miss a guy like Slay. He has better ball skills. He's longer. That is the difference in a game like this, and I think that's very concerning looking forward to the Packers next week in that division championship game, because Aaron Rodgers is even hotter than Dak Prescott. The Lions are going to have issues if they don't have Darius Slay. They can't figure out ways to defend the pass.
Yeah, when it comes to the passing game, I think the Packers are very similar to this Dallas team. You got a quarterback who gets out of the move. You've got an incredible offensive line. In pass protection, you got a receiver in Jordy Nelson, who I think brings a lot of the same mismatches. So they've got to get Darius Slay back in this game. It'll be interesting to watch the film to see quite what happened. I don't think you can go ahead and pin this all on Nevin Lawson, because it takes more than one guy to cover Des Bryant, but it just became something they couldn't deal with, and it opened up routes to other guys, and it just, at the end of the day, they didn't have enough on offense either to match that toe-for-toe.
You know, Zach Zenner was so good throughout most of the first half. He had a career high. Just in the first half alone, 64 rushing yards. He's a really dynamic player. But the Lions went away from Zenner in the second half, and I was kind of curious by that decision. I did ask Jim Caldwell about it after the game, and he had said, basically, in not so many words, that Dallas started doing some different stuff defensively, schematically, and so the Lions were adjusting to what they were seeing in terms of personnel and what Dallas was trying to take away. He didn't get real specific, but they were basically counteracting or reacting to what Dallas was doing. I don't know if that's the right call, though, because Zenner was rushing so well, and they didn't even try it. I mean, two touches in the second half. I just didn't think that was enough for a guy who was that hot. And they turned the game over to Matthew Stafford, and he was kind of inconsistent in the first half. It didn't really hurt the Lions because they were rushing the ball so effectively. When they went away from the rush in the second half, more of those inconsistencies came out. You saw the interception. You saw the fumble in the red zone, and that was the difference in a game where you weren't getting stops defensively.
Yeah, it was shocking to see them come out and run the way they did. I think really inspiring, and it is amazing they went away from it. I know Larry Warford talked after the game that it was different in sort of what their front was doing with Dallas, and they thought that they could go to the pass more, but 2 straight weeks you see them just go a little too far in one direction. Last week they were consistently running on first down, and it wasn't going anywhere, and they kept doing it. This one they didn't try to mix runs in, and I think, I understand the matchups that were there, but it helped just snowball this whole thing when they weren't getting stops, and that was the problem. They needed to stay in this to make it a 4-quarter game. I think they would have had a real advantage in the 4th quarter, but it felt like it was over by the time you got to the 4th quarter.
If we're looking for any positive takeaways from this game, I do think the emergence of some kind of competence in the running game is something to take away. They did it without Amir Abdullah and without Theo Riddick too. We saw Theo Riddick doing a little bit of workouts on the side last week, so I think he's getting closer. There's a possibility he would play next week against Green Bay. And the good news is Green Bay's defense isn't nearly as good as this one, particularly against the run. And I think if the Lions continue to show these kinds of growths in the running game, they might have some opportunities there as they look forward and try to win that divisional championship game.
Yeah, we've talked about the running game problems a lot, and it's something it's not going to all get fixed this late in the year against good teams, but it's inspiring that they fixed some levels of it. I think their creativity, it was subtle, as Zach Zenner really described, but it really showed the way they brought similar looks, and they did slightly different runs out of those, and it opened up gashes. I think you saw that on the touchdown play where Zach Zenner went in sort of on a counter, untouched in the end zone. So they've got to take some of what works, and they've got to find a way to make it a 4-quarter sort of game plan, something that you can't just let a team like Dallas did today go into halftime and say we're going to figure out, we're going to adjust to what they're doing and take it away. They've got to find a way to sort of expand that and make it last 4 quarters, because it's really starting to feel like their whole season comes down to this week.
No, I agree. The way I look at it is there's not a lot of shame in losing to Dallas. This is a really good team.
Right.
They're 13-2. They've only lost to one team all year. I mean, you're going to come here and lose sometimes or oftentimes, and in the case of the Lions, they did. There's no shame in that. But I do think, I mean, you've put yourself in a very bad spot if you're the Lions now. They can still get into the playoffs by losing if Washington loses against New York. But New York's playing on the road in Washington, already has its playoff bid wrapped up, so I don't think that's something you can count on. I think Washington is going to be a favorite in that game.
At some point, you want to be able to beat a playoff team before you get to the playoffs.
Well, that's a matter
them,
too, right? And that's a matter too. But you go into that game on Sunday night, you have now a pass defense that's been ripped up by Dak Prescott. Aaron Rodgers is playing even better. You got to figure out a way to fortify that defense, or you could be looking at going from the second seed in the NFC 2 weeks ago to being out of the playoffs entirely. That is a possible fall for the Lions at this point. They put themselves in a really bad spot with 1 week to go.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about their season. You know, they start 1-3, and then they rip off all those wins. They get to 9-4 there, and here they are trying to avoid a 3-game losing streak to end it. So everything's, you know, it's been such a roller coaster season. One game against Green Bay is really going to decide how much of a success or sort of relative disappointment, I guess, this entire season was.
It's going to be a great night of football, certainly. It's a great rivalry in so many games over the years, and it's hard to think of a game that has had more on the line than this one will next week. It's going to be a great night of Ford Field. We will be there. For Nate Atkins, I'm Kyle Meinke. We're M Live. Keep it right here.